know who you are and where you're from and what you're doing.
Hi, I'm Lyra. I'm a senior visual designer at Skype. I work primarily on the Windows client, so do the visuals for that one.
Hi, I'm Carlota. I'm an editor at Skype. Previously, I was working as a journalist, and I'm here to talk about content writing and gender. Does it matter? How do we do it? How we can be more inclusive?
I'm Zoe. I'm a software engineer on Skype for TV, and I used to be a game developer.
And I'm Hara. I'm an interaction designer here at Skype. Started as an engineer, moved to photography, and now interaction design. And I'm here to talk about the challenges that we have around creating experiences when it comes to gender.
Okay, I'm going to kick off with the first discussion point, which I think is what really got me into thinking seriously about gender and user experience design, and I think it's probably the most obvious one. So let's get it out of the way. Gender drop-down boxes. When you go into profiles and social networks or security forms or anything, and it's like, what are you, man or a woman? And then we have the other extremes of Facebook giving us, 50 plus options, not only in how you can identify yourself, but how you can relate to other people. So discussion topic one is there a right way to do it? Is Facebook's approach of throw everything out there and see what sticks correct? Or should it be the extreme of the youth-focused apps, which really don't ask you anything other than do you have a phone number? So do you have a perspective on is there a right way to do it?
Okay. Does anyone want to take this? Should I go? Okay. Yeah, so right or wrong answer. I think that's a tough one to kind of give. First of all, I don't know if you guys know what the crowd asks out there, but I'm not entirely sure when it comes to gender. What does the crowd want? Do they want to kind of state their gender or not? So first of all, I would start from there, kind of trying to understand for the people who are out there, do they want to project who they are, or is that something that they don't really want to talk about? And then when it comes to our brands, are we ready to kind of embrace the freedom? Are we ready to give the freedom to people to say it out loud?
There's actually a third option. So Metafilter has got free text box, and Diaspora does it as well. The drop-down's from a programmer's point of view, the drop-down's easier to do code. and it fits it into nice demographic boxes for advertising.
So the free text box obviously gives massive freedom to the consumer to say whatever they want. I don't have to describe myself as a man if I want. I can say dude or whatever. But as you say, it's not only is it a nightmare for the developer, but it's a nightmare for marketers and the sales team and anyone else who wants to exploit our data. So where does that come into user experience?
Gosh,
should salespeople be allowed anywhere near it? Or should they just cope with what they're given? Does anyone work in sales?
Well, or marketing? Marketing, anyone?
Do you want to chip in on that at all? Should salespeople be I'll come run over. Like a gazelle.
So I've just started working in sales as of last week. I got moved around. But I think the onus would be then onto sales to actually push and make that data worthwhile. So kind of putting all the dudes, putting it under the male perspective. Not making the user do the work and making the decisions, making the sales staff do the work. I think that's where it should be.
So they should basically cope with what they're given. See, my perspective on that as well is it means you're getting real data as opposed to, well, I don't really want to or know how to answer that question, so I'll just push a button. You should be able to use it better, right? Does anyone think differently? Yeah.
So as a marketer who focuses on kind of global brands, I think it really depends where you're marketing to. And so this is really pragmatic, but if you're in the West, gender is showing more of a flux, and increasingly gender is a less of a differentiator in terms of how you target advertising. But outside of the West, it's still king. And if you're creating a global brand, actually, just pragmatically, not in terms of my moral principles, you kind of need to keep gender because it's the biggest differentiator between people and in other cultures in the world.
But do you think that's still gender on a spectrum, or is it binary gender that we're talking about in non-Western places?
I think gender's on a spectrum.
Yeah, but in the markets you're talking about, do you think those are...
I think gender's on a spectrum, but in order to market to that spectrum, you need the boxes, especially outside of the West.
I guess the question now becomes a little bit more, can we make advertising a little bit more inclusive, maybe? So when it comes to differentiating between people, like, why do we have to think about female or male? Can we just start thinking about, like, everyone?
I think we've got a couple of points over here. Am I right? Right.
Groups.
I'm gonna run over. Did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Yeah, go on, you were first, I think.
Yeah, I work in marketing and I work with data a lot, and the more granular the data is, the better targeting and the better content that you can provide for the people. According to, so whether it be 2 different genders or 5 different genders or whatever it is, the more granular it is, the more useful it is for us.
And I work for a technology company, and we sell content so you can decorate the technology. I'll keep it kind of simple from that perspective. And we don't actually know what gender people are, but the pink content is selling better, and we're making assumptions about that. And so I don't really care what your gender is. I just want you to buy content. But gender will help us to understand better what people want and when they want it and what types they want. So I'm actually leaning toward not knowing the gender and really just trying to target audiences and leave it up to us to figure it out.
Okay, let's get back to the panel. Lyra, Carlotta, do you want to say anything about the whole gender drop-down issues? What would you do if you had to design a new one today?
If I had to design a new one, I just wouldn't put it on there. But sorry, I missed your name, James. So you were saying about different countries having different cultures and different sort of ways of looking at these things. I come from Kosovo, and I've lived here for the past 14 years. So I understand living in the West and living in Eastern Europe, especially my country. So I come from a place where when I was born, my grandmother cried because I was a woman. Because life was hard for women. She didn't cry because she didn't love me, but she was like, oh, another girl, she's going to have a hard life. And still in Kosovo, you have that stigma of being a woman, and you have to fight twice as hard. So I can understand that, like, selling to women in Kosovo is different than selling to women here. But in terms of technology and apps like Skype, I don't think you need like a gender. I think you need, like, it's more for the marketing and for Skype as a company to know that than for the user. There's no benefit for the user whatsoever. And I did check every single app and everything that I have bought. I did tick what I am, a woman. So I don't know what that says. Does that mean I just don't care? And I just said, yeah, you want some information, I'll give you some information. But we've become blind to that kind of thing. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I did check, and I have ticked that I'm a woman for some reason. So
I think blindness to gender biases is going to come back in a bit, but yeah, that's a good point. Do you want to say anything? Add anything?
Well, I would just like to add, I think it's been said, I think leaving a blank option for people to express themselves is a good idea, and it's not only a good idea for people to feel more included, but for the company themselves. I think the data they'll gather out of leaving the blank space and letting people express themselves will be really interesting. And yeah, perhaps some companies are afraid that a lot of meaningless data or stupid data may appear, but I think in the majority of cases, we tend to classify ourselves in categories, right? The dominant ones are male or female. Out of that, there might be another 5 or 10 that people would like to choose to put themselves on. That information is going to come out, and therefore I think the company will be able to use that information to market their products, or the people who are buying them and interested in them. And then obviously you'll have 1 or 2 answers that will be, oh, I'm a snail. Well, that's not useful, but I don't think that will be the majority of cases. So.
Okay, I want to move beyond the drop-down box, Nightmare, for a minute, and ask if you actually think about people's gender when you're designing experiences in a broader sense. Does it matter? I mean, I suppose the answers you're going to give me now might be in relation to what you're doing right now, but are there other examples where it's more or less relevant to think of the gender of the person you're designing for?
I'm going to pass the mic to a designer because I'm a writer. I'll add something at the end.
Writing too.
I'm just trying to think. So for Skype, we don't think about genders. We mostly think about personas and like type of people. So I've found that working for Skype, especially, we're not saying, oh, we need to make it more appealing for women, because I don't even know what that means nowadays. But working at the BBC, I know, because I worked at the BBC before as well, when we redesigned the homepage, one of the target audience that we were trying to grow was the women. And we really, really struggled to make it more appealing for women, and that's where I realized that the difference is very small. In fact, personas were more important for us, not the genders, like what those people do. So, for example, if some women were working really hard and were really working moms as well, they would be the same as the working dad or the single working person. So. I think in the Western culture especially, those lines are very blurred, and it's really hard to design, I mean, for a certain gender, because we tried it at the BBC, and I think we kind of failed. We just gone to something more generic about everyone, but some people who just stay at home and like entertainment more than news. So, yeah. Passing on.
Well, just really an example, iOS 8, on the health app, you can't track menstruation. So that's kind of a big problem.
What you're saying is someone forgot to design for gender at that point.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other examples as well. So
that, and I think, this will keep coming back because I think it's quite pertinent. This is an example of where people think they're not thinking about gender, because they haven't realised that there needs to be, something specific for women, perhaps. But actually, they have been thinking about gender the whole time. They've been thinking about man. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, the Silicon Valley startup culture is mostly white middle class men, and they design for themselves.
So to your point, they have been thinking about men, I would actually challenge the people who have a specific gender in mind just because their service or their application or whatever that is directed to a specific audience, to actually think out of the box and just put the other gender in the shoes of the same experience. And I think that will bring more ideas and more inspiration. And so, for example, if you're thinking about a service about new mothers, it would be great if you could think about new fathers and how they feel, because that can actually bring new connections between the two. So for me, it's about designing inclusive experiences more than designing for specific people and genders.
I'm a massive fan of inclusive design in all its forms. Is it? Yes, great. I was just about to do that bit.
Okay, so I come from a game design background. I work at Microsoft Studios, and we're working on our current title, and I think our gender split we are very focused on what the gender split of the game will be. Apparently, it's currently 55 male, 45 female, so down to 5th percentile. And that has influenced a lot of our UI design, especially. This is coming from on high, so it's obviously not my opinion. But a lot of the feedback we get is, okay, there needs to be less rounded corners because that's more female. Or we need to have, there needs to be a slightly darker overlay here because it's more male. And I don't know if that's because of the systems within the kind of game design community and the game development community are obviously kind of a male system a long time ago, or that's still kind of apparent. But I'm not sure. It just feels like it's actually still a question that gets referenced a lot in terms of games.
Like it or not, it's still very present. Funnily enough, I mean, we really have been talking about this all month, and the rounded corners thing keeps coming up all the time, everywhere. I think you were next, weren't you? Did you have your hand up? Yes?
I guess just to take it back a level, I'm coming from a digital agency where we look at e-commerce websites and apparel websites. And so on a very simple level, we actually see very different interactions of genders. So we see the way in which women shop during sale. They're all over the left-hand side filtering by what's left in my size, what's left in this color, really drilling down. Whereas men tend to be inspired by something in a piece of email marketing, go through, transact, like literally a few clicks, purchase. Whereas women will really integrate interact with that category page. So I guess stepping away from, a less political, identifying myself as male or identifying myself as female, we actually have very different sort of ways of interacting with apparel, I guess, with women. So on a more less political way, that there are actual real differences in terms of how you actually shop online, whether you be male or female.
I have one question that I've been asking myself, because, for example, when we're writing, in journalism school, we were taught to write for a gender-neutral audience, so avoid using pronouns like he and she, the way you construct sentences, even pseudo-gendered man, for example, mankind, etc., etc. So sometimes it is desirable to write being neutral. And my question is it also sometimes desirable to design neutrally, and how would you do that?
Does anyone out there want to say anything about that? We actually, there's one over there. Our style guide here as well is all about gender neutrality, like where possible. So it's not even journalism, it seems to be everywhere within copywriting. Yes, hello.
So just honing in on what everybody said so far, I don't think that in the West, it's, gender and kind of design are sort of converging, where it's no longer an issue. It's a massive issue. The last organization I worked for, where we built a car hire app, they basically vomited black and red all over the app because they wanted to attract men. But car hire is car hire. There are plenty of women in business who want to hire cars. So, what difference does it make? And that is based on very metric driven. It's very quantitative. Everything we do is so quantitative and for the sell rather than being inclusive. So from my point of view, the first thing, to answer your question will be to eliminate associating colors with a particular gender, because that seems to be a massive issue. I mean, if you look at the app, it's like, oh, look how manly it is because it's all black and red. It's just ridiculous, right? So, and pink is associated with women. Why? That is the first thing that we need to get rid of from like the very onset of, at the beginning of, your childhood, essentially, when we start telling children that if you wear pink, right, if you're a boy and you wear pink, you're a girl. It's just ridiculous. And that's where it all stems from. And then we get to this, our 30s or our 40s, and all of a sudden, black and red is manly and pink is feminine. It's just, that is what we need to eliminate.
Did you have something you wanted to add? Done. Carlos, I think you learned today about the history of pink and blue, didn't you?
Yeah, I did indeed.
You very excitedly said, look, I've learned something. I was like, yeah, I know that.
Well, apparently pink was the baby boy's color at the beginning of the century, because red, it was thought that it attracted more males, and then pink is a lighter, milder version of the red. So baby boys would wear pink, and then baby girls would wear blue. But that sort of changed mid-century. No one's really sure of why. But it's just a social construct, really, obviously.
Did someone put their hand up around here in front of me? It was you. Hello.
I'm a designer at Skype, and I really like what you said. But as a designer, we have to design thinking about the current conventions of the society. So if I design Skype all pink and white, I'm going to lose all my male customers, probably, because they don't really want to use a pink app.
It's the ongoing battle between political idealism and practical data, right? There's one more. I'm going one more over here, and then we'll talk about something else.
Hi, thanks. I'm an interaction designer at Sky, not Skype, and
get out.
Yeah, the P is missing, but we've been through like many iterations of our websites, and initially we had like a lot of problems with this perception of gender at Sky, because Sky is perceived as a very male heritage. So in the last iteration of our website, we tried, one of our main focus was to try to become like gender neutral. So everything was stripped down, all the colors were stripped down, and the gender is basically associated with the content these days. So what we aim to do is basically a very minimalistic frame, and the content is king on that sense. So obviously, if you put rugby on in our websites, they will be associated with men, and therefore like other pieces of content can be associated with families and female content as well. We have a TV channel called Living, which is initially, when it was purchased by the company, was entirely pink. And in our surveys, the results of that pink color was really, really bad, because there is an issue with like why all the women has to be generalized and boxed into a bright pink box. So these days the whole channel was rebranded to a silver color, and the silver color came up as a winner in our surveys and tests. So is just a bit of a comment on that.
Thank you. I've wanted to figure out how to feed this joke in for quite a while, but Sky, are you taking the P out of Skype? I know, it's not good, is it? I should have saved it and reworked. We are going to move on to something else in a minute, but Lyra, there's something I wanted to pick up on that you said. I know. So you said that we don't design for genders in Skype, but we have personas. And this is actually something that irritates me so much, because... are any of our researchers in? No, it's okay, I can go. We do have personas, and they are archetypes that are meant to aid the designing process. But we have the student, who is, this male, tech-savvy, I know how to get everything for free, and I can use every feature of Skype with no problem guy. And then we have the, I'm a housewife, and I don't really know how to use computers, so you have to make everything really simple for me situation. Now, are you saying that means that we've created personas that are devoid of genders? Because I think we have the worst gender stereotyping in our personas. So we are designing for genders inadvertently.
So we overlook that. So we overlook the genders, where we just look, this guy can use a computer. This guy spends this much time, or girl spends this much time on their computer, on their phone, and stuff like that. I think those, maybe they're just for execs to see the pictures of a... I don't know, housewife or something, I don't know. But we overlook all of that stuff. We just look how much they're spending time, how they use it, would they know how to use this app. It's basically what they do on a daily basis and how much time they spend on it.
I do wonder, though, if the needs of a house husband are different to a housewife, and the needs of a female student are different to, just throwing it out there as a contentious issue. All right. So to twist it around a little bit, rather than do you think about the consumer's gender when you design, and I'm using design in a very loose sense, I mean create experiences, right, however you choose to interpret it. Does your gender affect the way you create experiences? Can you create it from a genderless perspective? Does it make a difference? Does it improve it? Do you feel you're a better designer because you're a woman or a man? Does anyone have any thoughts they want to kick off on how your gender affects how you create experiences?
Shall I just say no?
You can definitely say no.
No, I mean, we had this conversation the other day, and I don't think so, because I was thinking, oh yeah, well, I like to design while like collaborating and talking. Maybe that's a female thing, but no, it's not really. It's a type of personality. Some people like to work while talking and sharing, and some people like just to put their headphones on and zone out and just work away, and nothing to do with gender. Nothing.
Anyone have different opinions? Harry does.
Not a different opinion necessarily. Like I observed a lecture of a researcher last year, and she was actually presenting data that female designers have a more roundy approach. They like circles, they like rounds, versus like men, they like geometry more, and they like. She didn't get into colors. It was only about the shapes, and I couldn't believe any of that, because I haven't experienced that for myself. But I do tend to kind of like circles more. I have to admit it. I think it's I don't know, I like it more as a shape.
Who'd have thought someone who likes circles would work at Skype?
No, I do like it more. I don't know why though. But also like designers get like, I think they have their own personal obsessions, those personalities, and it gets again, like asking about the gender becomes like too specific. I think is about the actual person who designs. What is his background? Where is he coming from? And this whole package influences who he is and what he does, not just, you know, one part of his personality.
Is there anyone who has anything to add to that? You know, maybe would think, okay, I need to create this experience, whether it's you know, an article or an app or a website or a picture of some kind, and you would go to a specific gender to get it done. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I worked in gambling for 3.5 years at Betfair, and where, going back to the earlier comments, you mentioned about gaming, but where the split is 80% male using your products, you've actually got to put yourself in those shoes. You really have, you know, because you've really got to. You're dealing obviously with various personas in that, but at Betfair, literally all our personas were male. We didn't have one woman persona, and I had a team of mainly male, but also women in that team. But they could equally design as anything that would appeal to our male audience as much as a male would as well. So I think that's a really important consideration. And going back to the colour thing as well that we talked about earlier, literally you'll look at gambling sites, they're all sort of dark, they're quite intense, whereas then the only exception is when you go to bingo sites, like Foxy Bingo's all pink, and you know, there really is a gender split there. And they, you know, those predominantly bingo sites are mainly played by women. There's some men that play them. There's a lot of men that play them that don't admit to. But at the same time, I think there's a real split there, and that's quite an interesting one, I think, from a design perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask, were the women on your team copywriters or designers? Oh, okay. I know. It's just because we have a copywriter here who previously worked in gambling, and something which occurred to me, I don't know whether it's your gender affecting your work. I think it's something to do with the working conditions, but we were at, I'm a writer too, we were at a copywriting conference last week, and it struck me when I looked around how evenly balanced everything was, from the panel to the attendees, and here as well, we're 50-50, and it's something that I tend to find consistently throughout the industry. I don't know if we've got any other writers here. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know, were there some special efforts? Is it because, you know, we perform equally well at English in school or whatever, although most of us didn't study English here? And then it struck me, what if it's something to do with anonymity? Because the form that we grow up practicing can be quite anonymous. You write words down, you send it off, you can be whoever you want. And, you know, I think infamously you have pen names for authors, who can pretend to be another gender and can potentially see their sales rocket depending on what genre they're writing for. And I wonder if that's the system we've come into, and why it isn't the same for design, because it's still a visual medium. You know, it's still something that you could potentially send anonymously, but maybe you don't grow up with that conception of an anonymous designer. You know, even Banksy, who was anonymous, was a man. We knew that. So, we thought we knew it. I don't know. Does anyone want to? That was a bit of a rant. Sorry. Does anyone want to come back on that? Yeah, there's one over
there. So I come from a content background as well, and I personally find, that I am quite biased when I'm creating content. I mean, I try not to be, but I think that it's innate. The way that I think goes into the content that I'm creating, and I think that. I actually say I'm not sure that I agree with what you're saying about writing being anonymous. I mean, I guess because my background's in journalism, where you tend to get a byline and stuff. You know, I think that you do get kind of very masculine writers and very feminine writers. I mean, maybe not quite so many feminine writers, because I think a lot of the way the journalism industry is set up doesn't help to bring those voices to the front, but that's for intermedia rather than InterTech. I mean, I'm very interested if the panel, and particularly our copywriter on the panel, has any advice on how to kind of does she have a process for kind of stepping outside of the gender boundaries and the kind of inherent biases when she's creating copy? Because I find it hard.
No, I don't have a magic recipe, unfortunately. I think I would agree with you. I think it is important to know the audience you're writing for, and if you're writing for a feminine audience, then bringing the gender, writing in a specific way, is a positive thing, same as if you're writing for a male audience. Then I'm going to disagree with you. I think your gender does come into place when you're writing something, and I don't think we should strive for eliminating it, because it's part of our personality. It's as if I pretend I'm not middle class and I'm an aristocrat because I'm gonna, try to appeal to the aristocrats, or the other way around. I'm a person. I've grown up with a gender. I've got certain stereotypes, I've grown up with certain things that are part of me. I don't think I should try to hide them or to neutralize them. What I do advise to do is to be inclusive, not just because I'm writing as a woman for woman, eliminate from the equation to men, transgender, whatever. So that's how I write. I don't pretend I'm someone else for writing, because then I think you're fake. You're staging something.
That's a good point, actually. Do we design experiences in such, do we try to be so broad and neutral that we miss out on things that are really human? The mistakes in music that make it beautiful. Do we forget that when we're doing UX?
I don't know, Lyra. I think sometimes we set up so many rules that we kind of eliminate our freedom in options. But overall, I would say you try to become part of what you're designing. You're trying to embody yourself within the brand, within the people, so you're trying to become part of that experience, and that's empathizing, I guess. So that would be my take.
Okay. I'm not sure if I understood this correctly, but I'm going to try and answer. I think it depends on the thing that you're designing. So, for example, if you're designing something for pregnant women that, I don't know, something like Baby Center, they have like lots of articles and stuff for women who are going through pregnancy. That kind of writing is very specific, because the most interesting party there is the pregnant women who are going to have the baby. But you have to do it in a way so that even the fathers-to-be would be interested in it. But then that shifts a little bit, so it's like 70% for the pregnant ladies and like 30% for them, because you need to know your audience and say 70% will be these ladies and 30% will be these males. I don't know if I understood it correctly, but just wanted to add this one. It depends on the thing you're designing for.
Always depends. Yeah. I think we're going to go for another 10 minutes, so I want to talk a little bit more about, I want to move on to career and so forth, but can I get a beer, please, someone? This is hard work, guys. Wow, there was a response to can I have a beer? I'll come over, that's okay. I'm just going to go via this way. Thank you.
I'm going to try and not make this a rant, but I've heard that the biggest money-spinning marketing is to pregnant women, and if you accidentally tick a box, if you're not a woman that's ever going to have a kid, who's got no intention of having a kid, or if you're past the age of being able to have a kid, then you still get you fall through the marketing box, and you still get hounded. I include myself. Now I'm starting to rant. For some reason, every day I get about 6 bloody adverts from Apta Milk, whatever. Nappies. What the hell? I'm never going to have a kid. I don't want a kid. I don't want to see pictures of babies every bloody day. What is going on out there? And I'm sure there's lots of women like me that are just falling through these marketing gaps and just getting hounded by baby stuff. Can someone help? Is anyone listening out there?
Can someone help? That's pretty desperate. I'll take one more and then I want to move on to careers and stuff.
It's more like a joke. In Spain, we developed a system, and they're able to predict that women are pregnant before they actually were, based on their behavior. So it's your behavior that might mimic the pregnant woman's behavior, so you get the offers. But I'm a data engineer, and probably that gender take is part of input for the predicting of the models. If you are female, you'll get the predictions, of course, but also your behavior. No, like what I'm saying, like if you take out the gender, it will be very hard to predict based on your behavior what products to offer for you, because anything that doesn't involve babies. Yes, I agree, but
we're moving into private consultation there, and that costs extra. So it's going to move back. I wanted to ask to round off on about your work life and hopefully finish on some positive stuff as well. So I think it's good to have mentors and role models for various reasons. Is it important to have one of the same gender within your work environment?
It's important to have a mentor, like someone to lean on, to help you grow as a person, whether that's a male or a female. Up to you guys.
I'd say it was important. It'd be nice, not necessarily directly interacting with you, but see someone like you.
So more a role model than a mentor, someone visible.
Yeah. Personally, I wouldn't be too bothered for a mentor, but being able to see people that have been successful, have done what you want to do.
I agree to what you just said. I mean, I was lucky enough to have not a mentor, but someone that I admired and really worked well with her. She was a woman, but it might not be the fact, as you said, that she was a woman, but we were alike, and I wanted to be where she was and in her career. But yeah, I agree. You just need to find someone who's similar to you and understands you.
Yeah. Of course, I'm going to state the obvious. It is important to have role models, and the more diverse those role models are, the more diverse people they will attract.
So, Carlos, let me ask you a question. So, I'm sort of your direct mentor at work, aren't I? And does it matter that I'm a man? Do you think there's some things that you wouldn't tell me? I'm going to ask you in front of hundreds of people. But also, no, that was kind of more like a cheeky joke question. What I was going to say is, so next week I'm off to Phoenix in Arizona to go to Grace Hopper, which is a celebration of women in technology that Microsoft's a big supporter of. And I wanted to go, and they said, fantastic. As it happens, we're actually looking for a lot more men to come this year to show that gender diversity and celebrating women and welcoming them is an issue for everyone. So, does it matter if the representative of Skype at the Grace Hopper Women in Technology Conference is a man? Is it good? Is it bad? Does it not make a difference?
I think it's positive. I don't know, that's a man that understands gender issues and is able to organize a conference about women in technology is breaking a milestone. It's actually, it proves that there's been some advances in the field.
Love the scared way in which you said that, like we were having a connect. Say the right answer. Or... It's an open question to everyone, actually. Yeah, I suppose is gender an issue for everyone? Is it silly for a man to go into what was previously an all-female group and go, I really would like to join you because I'm interested in equality? Yeah.
I think a lot of the issues really are expectations. And what I noticed coming here is that there's 4 women on the panel. Yeah, this is about, does gender matter? Well, what you're saying is, or what I think you're suggesting is that obviously it's a male-dominated environment and that we need women's opinions to talk about how women are underrepresented. That's what it seems to me. I've also noticed that you tend to give the microphone earlier to women than you do to men. during the session. I don't know. That's just something I've noticed. But yeah, I think it's a lot about expectations. And like you said, is it bad for a male to represent, a women in tech conference? I don't know. I think I agree with the editor, saying that it's actually an advancement to have people kind of represent the other side, I guess, and understand that. So you as a male representing the female side. But it shouldn't be so much about expectations, about whoever feels comfortable in representing them, and it shouldn't really matter. And I feel like almost you posing that question always means that you're really aware of it. So I guess it's really kind of a social criticism type of thing that I'm putting out there.
I'm really aware of it and wanted to bring it up. I did a seminar last week because it was something that occasionally plays on your mind. Like, am I welcome in what was previously an all-female environment? I brought it up because Emma Watson did, so I'm blaming her. Yeah.
I want to go back to the mentors thing. So I'm early in career. Obviously, I have about 3 years experience in the industry, and it is games, which is much less gender diverse than a lot of the other design industries. Anyone who's been my mentor have all been male, because I haven't actually been able to find any female mentors working in the sort of roles that I want to get into. And I don't know if that's because I'm specialized, so I want to get into obviously UI design, graphic design, kind of visual design side of UX. But I have not been able to find any women in senior roles in that side of things in the games industry. And that's maybe just kind of where I'm coming from, the people I've met. But I think it's a huge issue for finding mentors, for actually finding women that you can look up to as a woman. But I don't think it's a huge problem. I've still learned a huge amount from the men who are my mentors. So.
Is it more on mentoring? Yes? No? Okay, I'll come around and find out.
So again, I think the biggest issue for this starts, is the social conditioning. One of the points that you mentioned was how in research it shows that women tend to like circles and men like geometric shapes. So why is that? And the reason tends to be is that it's not to do with gender. It's more about whether you're a creative or you're a scientific person. So like from my point of view, I'm an engineer. I don't like circles. I like geometric shapes. I like metrics. I like precision perfect. So you need to be able to find a mentor who acknowledges that. And when we're designing things, it should be based on the type of person, how they're going to interact. And not to kind of digress too much, but going back to the mentors, I think it is important. So if you're working in technology, to see that there are women in those positions who have excelled, who you can aspire, you can aspire, and you can then encourage other women in tech. And just to spin it, for instance, male nurses. There's a massive stigma around male nurses. Why is that? What's so fundamentally? Sorry. Exactly. So and they get mocked and they get called mercies and things like that. It's ridiculous. It's like those are social and gender stereotypes that we need to get rid of from the onset. And you need to have mentors, like male kind of people who are nurses and females in technology, in order to sort of balance that out and show women and men where the careers could take them.
Thank you. We've only got like 5 minutes left of this bit, although please, when we get back to the drinking, do continue your conversations amongst yourselves. But I wanted to see if we could finish on any wholly positive actions, maybe things you've experienced in your workplace or your career that you think, this is something I've learned about either creating an experience or getting on in my career, and it's to do with gender and gender equality, that you wanted to share. I've got one to kick off, and oh no, there's one over there. Okay, cool.
So I just started my career about 12 months ago with a tech consulting firm, and I moved straight into actually HR. So it was quite a female-dominated area of tech. And my mentor at the time was actually a female woman in a consulting tech perspective, which was interesting and actually amazing, because she was actually clawing out of HR as fast as she could, because she didn't like it. She actually wanted to be in consulting and technology. And I was so much happier that I had someone that was fighting to get out of this, and it was actually an amazing inspiration. And I saw gender, having a female mentor, in such a positive way, because it showed me what fighting was, how to break down stereotypes, and that she was actually a way better consultant than a HR partner. Like, she didn't, that's what she wanted to do, that's what she was passionate about. And that told me that I should really follow what I want to do, and I shouldn't be confined to what I should. And it's possibly the best mentor I've had yet, and I've had quite a few.
Thank you. Yep. Positive actions to show people. Great.
So I started working at King about 9 months ago, and it's been a great pleasure to see the company bring so many women towards the gaming market. It's casual gaming, Candy Crush, for those of you who don't know, but like we've brought a huge number of women into an entirely new market, and gradually the industry is starting to recognize that female gamers comprise a large subset of the industry, and that we should focus on them. So, positives.
Thanks, man. There's a suggestion I want to share with you to take back to your HR people, which is something we did here at Microsoft last year, and that's to start removing gender labels from your HR policies. They're not needed. Everyone should be treated equally. And to give you our firm example, we used to have something called maternity leave, and then we changed it to parental leave. And now, whatever your gender identity, whatever your sex, whoever you're married to, however you're having kids, you can have the same rights. So, you know, a father can go away with his husband and raise a kid that they've had by surrogates. Fantastic. There are so many knock-on effects that you can discover within your policies and your culture when you start to examine the things that you don't think about. You have to remove yourself from that situation and go, hang on a minute, do we need to say that there? Why do we say that? Why can't we make it more broad, more inclusive? Something along those lines. So I would say to all of you, when you get back to work, send an email to your HR team and say, hey guys, have you thought about removing or, you know, whoever is setting your policies, have you thought about removing gender labels from your policies? That's something I'd share to go back with you. Anything else anyone wants to share before we close off about things people can do when they get back to work? Yep.
Hi there. I'm not so much from the tech world. I'm more from broadcasting, and I worked on a science fiction brand and have done for about 8 years. And one of our problems is it's so male dominated. And I realized within about a year of taking over a portion of it that everybody who was working on it and everybody who appeared on screen except some of the actresses were all white middle-class men. And curiously enough, I put a very draconian rule. I gave all of my producers 1 year to change that, and I got a huge amount of criticism for it, but it only took 1 year, and then I could take the kind of the aggressive breaks off, and it became the culture. And I did find, although it would be fantastic to go very neutral, occasionally I think when you do enter into gender strong areas, you sometimes just got to go in with a hacksaw and go, no negotiation, you got 12 months. And in my experience, even in the world of science fiction, I found it worked, and it hugely improved the visibility of women, both in front of the camera and behind it as well.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap up. If you've got any last words you want to say, I'm going to give them to the panel. She said embrace women in case you didn't hear that. That wasn't just me going in. No? Thank you so much for sitting up here and fielding my questions, because I really did just go over to their desks one day and it went, by the way, you're on a panel now. And we all sit over there. And also, thank you all of you for coming and joining in. That was exactly what I was after, some good involvement and some nice honest discussion. So thanks for that. Do carry on, enjoy whatever alcohol we have left, and one more plug for Skype. Natalie, hello, can you stand up? Yes. Natalie helped me organise this. She's from recruiting in design, so you know what that means if you want to go and talk to her. And we've got a few sweets and goodies left here as well. I think that's everything for now. InterTech is going through a bit of a regeneration phase at the moment, not least of which is our website. So keep an eye on announcements for a new thing there. And in the meantime, please do stay in frequent touch with us on social media, because Adam does it and he gets lonely. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Adam. Thanks very much, everyone. I'll sign off and put some music on and drink. Thank you.